Snow falls quietly over the steel bridges of Pittsburgh, turning the city into a frozen whisper. A war veteran, Jack Turner, walks through the cold with his daughter Lily, their breath fogging in the pale winter light. Beside them, his loyal shepherd, Rex, moves with the patience of an old soldier. At a lonely street corner, a ragged man holds a piece of cardboard that reads, "5 for the beast." Behind him lies an old German shepherd, ribs showing, fur matted, one ear bent and eyes full of pain. The world passes by, but the child stops. Lily's small hand tugs at her father's sleeve. "Daddy, can we save him?" Jack hesitates. The soldier in him measures risk, but the father in him feels something break. In those eyes, he doesn't just see an animal. He sees a wounded soul asking for one last chance. When Jack finally pays those $5, he doesn't yet know that this single act of kindness will uncover a hidden world of cruelty, courage, and redemption, and lead them all toward a quiet miracle waiting beneath the snow. Chapter 1. Steel, Snow, and a $5 sign. Approx. 1,000 words. The first snow of December swept through Pittsburgh like a soft white hush, dusting the steel bridges and muted rooftops until the whole city seemed to hold its breath. On Liberty Avenue, the wind scraped down the narrow streets between rows of brick buildings, bending the lamplight into ghostly streaks. Jack Turner walked slowly along the salted sidewalk, his breath forming brief clouds in the air. He was 42, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of posture that only years in uniform could teach. Spine straight, eyes alert, shoulders square even under a worn army green coat. His hair, dark with streaks of gray, was trimmed short, and a 2-day stubble shaded a jawline that looked carved from something harder than bone. The deep lines around his mouth told of sleepless nights and quiet wars that never made the news. Beside him trotted Rex, a German shepherd of 10 years, coat thick but dulled with time, black fading into tan along the haunches. His right ear drooped slightly, a relic of the explosion that ended his service career overseas. Even now his stride carried the silent rhythm of discipline. Every few steps he glanced up at Jack, reading his pace, reading his mood. Jack called it the old patrol instinct. Rex had been his partner for 7 years of deployment, tracking, guarding, saving, and when shrapnel took the dog's hearing in one ear, the Army retired him. Jack refused to leave him behind. At his other side skipped Lily Turner, 9 years old, a swirl of wool hat, pink scarf, and restless curiosity. She had her father's eyes, gray, calm, but filled with questions, and her late mother's blonde hair that curled rebelliously around her face. Lily was the one reason Jack had learned to laugh again, though most days his smile felt borrowed. Since his wife's death 3 winters ago, a car accident during a snowstorm much like this, Jack had wrapped himself in work and silence, building walls no one could see. Only Lily and Rex knew how to climb over them. They were on their way to the corner cafe, a small reward after Lily's piano recital, when the sound of a tin sign clattering in the wind drew their eyes to a bus shelter ahead. The shelter's plexiglass walls were fogged, scratched with graffiti, and beneath them hunched a man bundled in a patched coat that might once have been brown. His beard, streaked with yellow and gray, spilled unevenly over a scarf that had more holes than warmth. A pair of tired eyes blinked out from under a wool cap, darting like someone always waiting to be caught. His name, though they did not yet know it, was Earl Hobb. Earl's cardboard sign leaned against his knee, scrawled in black marker, $5 for the beast. Behind the sign lay a dog, an old German shepherd, ribs pressing against the skin, fur mottled with grime, one ear bent crookedly. His muzzle was gray, his paws cracked, and his eyes, those eyes were deep, dark, and too human. They followed Jack and Lily the moment they came close, steady, waiting. Lily stopped, the crunch of snow under her boots the only sound between them. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging his sleeve. "Look." Jack's gaze followed hers. His pulse slowed. There was something about the way the dog lay. Head on paws, chest barely rising, but still proud, as if dignity was the only thing left that couldn't be taken. He had seen that look before, in soldiers left too long in the field, in mirrors he'd avoided for years. Rex's ears twitched. He took one cautious step forward, nose working the air. The other dog's eyes flicked toward him but didn't move. No growl, no fear, just a silent acknowledgement. One old warrior recognizing another. Jack's first instinct was caution. The street was full of scams, and he'd seen men like Earl before. Too many years on the margins, trading pity for cash. Still, something in Earl's crooked smile when he spoke made the hairs on Jack's neck rise. $5, soldier," Earl said, voice low and raw from cold and cigarettes. "That's all it takes. Take him off my hands. Beast's done for anyway." Jack studied him. The way Earl's eyes darted toward the alleys, the tremor in his left hand, the smell of cheap whiskey and something metallic beneath it. Not just poverty, but guilt. "Where'd you get him?" Jack asked. Earl shrugged. "Does it matter? He ain't mine no more." Lily stepped closer, her breath fogging the air in tiny bursts. "Please, Daddy," she said, voice trembling. "He's freezin'. Look at him." Jack's jaw worked. He looked down at the dog again. There was a story here, written in scars and silence. He imagined the chain that had rubbed that bald line around the neck, the leg that never quite set right. He heard echoes of commands. Stay. Down. Wait. Embedded somewhere deep in that animal's memory. Rex sat beside Lily now, watching the broken shepherd with measured patience, as if offering silent counsel. Jack felt the old weight in his chest, the one that came whenever he saw something he could fix, but didn't know if he was strong enough to. $5, Earl repeated, tapping the sign with a dirty glove. Take the beast before the night does. Jack reached into his wallet. The bill felt heavier than it should have. You said 5? Earl's grin was quick, slippery. That's the deal. When Jack handed over the bill, Earl snatched it like a man afraid it might vanish, then shoved it deep into his pocket and stood. Pleasure doin' business, he muttered, already backing away. He moved fast for someone who'd been sitting in the cold all evening. Within seconds, he was swallowed by the snow. Jack watched him go, uneasy. That was too easy, he said quietly. Maybe he was scared, Lily said, kneeling by the dog. Her gloved hand brushed the shepherd's fur, and the animal's head lifted, weakly, eyes locking on hers. Something passed between them, something Jack couldn't name. Careful, he warned, but his voice was softer now. The dog exhaled, a low, rasping sound that wasn't quite a growl. It was the sound of relief. What should we call him? Lily asked. Jack crouched, studying the dog's scars, the shape of his chest, the steady beat of his heart beneath matted fur. He's carried the world on his back, he said. Maybe Atlas. Lily smiled. Atlas, she repeated, testing the name like a promise. Rex sniffed the new arrival once more and gave a single approving huff before turning back toward home. By the time they reached their narrow brick row house in Lawrenceville, snow was falling thicker, muting the city into a soft gray dream. Jack laid an old blanket near the heater. Atlas sank down with a sigh that sounded almost human. Lily whispered goodnight and pressed her palm to his head. Later, when the house was quiet, Jack stood by the window, watching flakes tumble past the streetlights. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered that this wasn't just luck. He thought of Earl's nervous eyes, his too quick exit, and the word beast written like a curse. Rex padded up beside him, pressing against his leg. "You feel it too, don't you, boy?" Jack murmured. The dog's tail gave a slow sweep. Outside, the city slept under snow. Inside, 3 souls, one broken, one loyal, one innocent, shared the same fragile warmth. And Jack, for the first time in years, felt the beginning of something he couldn't yet define. Purpose, or maybe just the quiet pull of fate. Chapter 2. Whispers Beneath the Frost. Approx to 1,000 words. Morning came quietly to Pittsburgh, as though the snow itself had decided to hold the city in silence. Pale light seeped through the thin curtains of Jack Turner's kitchen, settling on the edges of old furniture and the steam rising from a pot of oatmeal. The smell of coffee filled the air, strong and bitter, the kind that could wake a soldier even from his heaviest sleep. Jack stood by the counter, shoulders squared out of habit, staring into his mug as if it held some secret message. Rex lay by the door, eyes half-lidded but alert. Beside the heater, Atlas slept wrapped in a quilt, his breathing steady, though every exhale carried a small, tired rasp. Lily clattered down the stairs, her mismatched socks sliding on the wooden floor. "Morning, Daddy," she said, tugging on her scarf even though they were still inside. Jack smiled faintly. "Morning, sunshine. Eat something warm before school." She bent to pet Atlas, her fingers brushing the shepherd's coarse fur. "He looks better today," she whispered. Jack glanced down. The dog's eyes flicked open, watching her with quiet awareness. He wasn't ready to trust yet, but he wanted to. Jack recognized that look. As Lily chattered about school, Jack's thoughts drifted back to the night before. The way Earl Hobb had vanished so quickly. The unease that lingered in his gut. He couldn't shake the sense that the $5 dog had brought something else with him. When Lily left for school, escorted by their elderly neighbor Mrs. Keating, a retired teacher with a spine like a ruler and kindness hidden under her scolding tone, Jack finally made the call he'd been postponing. "Carla, it's Turner." The voice that answered carried a mix of warmth and fatigue. Officer Carla Ruiz had been Jack's contact at the local precinct since his return from service. 36, Puerto Rican descent, sharp eyes behind square glasses, and a presence that filled every space she entered. She was known for her stubborn pursuit of cruelty cases, especially involving animals, and for the quiet compassion that had cost her too many sleepless nights. Her uniform always looked a little too crisp, like armor she refused to take off. "Morning, Jack," she said, voice dry as winter air. "You sound like trouble before breakfast." Jack sighed. "Maybe. I came across something odd last night. A guy on Liberty Ave, Earl Hobb, selling a shepherd for $5. The dog's in rough shape, multiple scars, chain marks, old fracture. It doesn't feel like neglect. It feels organized." There was a pause on the other end. Then a chair creaked. "You think he's part of something bigger?" "I don't know yet," Jack said. "But he ran fast after I paid. Too fast." "I'll look into it," Carla replied. "We've had reports lately. Missing dogs from the South End. Shelters claiming pickups that never logged returns. Might be connected." "Send me what you find," Jack said. "Still playing detective, huh?" He smiled without humor. "Just can't turn it off." When the call ended, Jack cleaned the kitchen, though his mind was elsewhere. He watched Atlas as the dog stirred awake, stretching stiffly, eyes scanning the room. Rex approached him carefully, tail low but wagging once, an unspoken peace offering. Atlas responded with a soft huff, neither friend nor foe, just acknowledgement. When Jack crouched beside them, the old shepherd shifted his weight and let Jack's hand rest on his head. Beneath the rough fur, Jack could feel the faint tremor of muscles remembering command. Later that afternoon, Jack bundled in his heavy coat and decided to take both dogs out for air. The sky was a dull pewter, clouds sagging under the promise of more snow. The city moved slowly, cars whispering over wet asphalt, people hunched inside scarves. They followed the river trail, where the thin ice crackled at the edges of the Monongahela. Rex trotted ahead, while Atlas walked closer to Jack's leg, as if the open space unsettled him. Halfway along the path, a figure appeared by the frozen bench near the bend. He was tall, lanky, with a camera hanging from his neck and a notebook tucked under his arm. "Beautiful dogs," he called out, his tone friendly but too eager. His name, he said, was Simon Laird, a freelance photographer covering local human interest stories. He had the look of someone who thrived on caffeine and missed deadlines. Messy dark hair under a knit cap, hands stained with ink, a smile too quick to be genuine. Jack nodded politely but didn't slow. Simon followed with casual strides. "That one," he gestured at Atlas. "He's a rescue, isn't he? Looks like a real survivor." Jack studied him carefully. "You take pictures of rescues often?" Simon chuckled. "Only the ones with stories?" His eyes flicked from Jack to the dogs, lingering too long. "You mind if I take a shot? The light's perfect." "Not today," Jack said evenly. Rex gave a low rumble of agreement. Simon raised both hands in mock surrender. "No harm meant, soldier." The word soldier stopped Jack cold. He hadn't said a thing about his past. His pulse thudded once in his throat before he forced himself to walk on. Behind him, Simon's camera clicked anyway. Once. Just once. And that was enough to etch unease deep into Jack's bones. That night, the snow came harder, blanketing the streets until even the lamplight looked soft. Lily slept early, exhausted from her day, and Rex snored quietly near her door. Jack sat at the kitchen table sorting through the mail. Most were bills. One was a flyer for a local veterans support group. He almost tossed it, but then another envelope caught his eye. Plain, unmarked, damp from snow. Inside was a single photograph. It showed Jack, Lily, Rex, and Atlas on the river trail, taken from behind the bench. The signature at the bottom corner read in tiny cursive, SL. Jack's hands tightened around the photo. Somewhere in the distance, a siren rose and fell. Rex lifted his head, ears twitching toward the window. Atlas stood, stiff-legged, tail low, staring into the dark beyond the glass. Jack whispered, "We're not done with this, are we?" Rex gave a small, rumbling growl, the kind that meant agreement. Outside, under the steady fall of snow, something unseen moved past the gate, leaving no tracks behind. Chapter 3. Footprints in powdered silence. The snow deepened until Pittsburgh sounded like a radio turned low. Every street cushioned, every voice dimmed, and inside that hush, Jack Turner moved like a man who had learned to listen for small things. Boot squeaks, wind seams, the breath of his dogs. SFX, kettle hiss, distant plow scraping, a wall clock ticking. He set the anonymous photograph on the kitchen table. The glossy surface caught a shard of lamplight. Jack, Lily, Rex, and the battered newcomer Atlas on the river trail. Shot from a bench, signed SL. His jaw flexed once. Rex, 10 years old and all sinew and discipline, lay near the doorway with his good ear canted forward. Atlas, older and ragged, dozed with one eye half open like a sentry who refuses the off-duty bell. Jack dialed. Officer Carla Ruiz answered. 36, compact, Puerto Rican, uniform always crisp and eyes always a step ahead. Years of cruelty cases had carved a tired kindness into her voice. "You've got something?" she asked. "A stalker with initials," Jack said. "Meet me where we can see the door." SFX, diner bell, plates clink, muffled weather report. The Iron City Diner on Butler had windows fogged by breath and coffee. Sarah McKenna, the owner, mid-50s, tall and willow-straight with a crown of copper hair pinned in a no-nonsense twist and freckled Irish skin that had weathered 4 recessions, slid a pot to their booth. Sarah's manner was brisk, maternal, eyes sharp from years of reading trouble before it spilled. "Cold that gets into the bones," she said, pouring. "Your usual, Jack. Honey for your cop friend." Carla smirked. "I'll take the honey." Jack placed the photo on the formica. Carla leaned in, glasses catching neon. SL could be a signature or a message. Simon Laird? Freelance photographer. Knew I was a soldier without asking, Jack said. Carla's brow pinched. Ambitious types sell pictures to rescue groups or to the wrong people. Depends on who pays faster. Sarah, a minor oracle of neighborhood gossip, drifted back with pie. "That Laird boy?" she asked, chin tilting toward the window. "Tall, camera, hair that looks argued with? Been around nights shooting bridges. Tips too well when he's nervous." Jack's shoulders eased a degree. "You seen him today?" "Left 10 minutes before you walked in. Frost on his scarf, not much breath. Means he wasn't walking far." Sarah's reads were rarely wrong. 30 years pouring coffee for night workers will teach a person the weather of faces. Carla's phone buzzed. She scanned the alert and lowered her voice. 2 shelters filed complaints. Dogs picked up by a third-party transport that never arrived. Plate numbers false. Reports mention a holding site by the 2nd Avenue freight depots. We've chased ghosts there before. Jack rubbed the scar crease in Rex's fallen ear. Habit more than need. 2nd Avenue's a mile from where Earl Hobbs sold me Atlas. Carla jotted names in a neat block print. The lines of her jaw locked into resolve. "I can't pull a warrant on fog and a bad feeling, but I can drive by." Jack's mouth thinned. "I'll ride along." Sarah set down the check and, with a look that said, "Don't be a hero," added 2 charcoal hand warmers to Jack's coat pocket. Outside, the snow hissed like a secret. SFX, cruiser heater fan, radio murmurs, wipers thumping in rhythm. 2nd Avenue at night was a corridor of corrugated steel and sodium light. Carla rolled slow, eyes combing shadow pockets. She was the kind who kept conversation to the road and thoughts to herself, but Jack could feel the way she clocked everything. Fresh tire scallops, a padlock recently rubbed clean, a smear where a boot had slipped. She parked behind a dead box truck, killed the headlights, and let the city's glow paint the lane. Rex and Atlas, both harnessed, waited in the back, bodies forward and breathing shallow, dogs who knew when a place didn't want them. Carla tapped her pen against the steering wheel. 5 minutes on foot, we don't open doors, we don't make noise. Jack nodded. Copy. SFX, crunchy snow under careful steps, distant river horn, a loose sign clacking. They moved along a fence where frost etched chain link into lace. A gape near the bottom chewed by bolt cutters offered a crawl-under path. Carla slid first, fluid, rising in a crouch on the other side. Jack's frame followed. Rex flowed like water. Atlas hesitated, then committed, a grunt catching in his old chest. Inside the yard, a metal bay door wore the ghost letters BY1 in peeling paint. A side personnel door stood padlocked, but fresh boot tracks stitched back and forth to a shallow ramp leading to a half-ajar vent. The air from the vent carried a cocktail of ammonia, wet fur, and something coppery. Rex's spine turned to wire, Atlas fixed on the dark. Jack dropped to a knee, flashlight capped with red film, and thumbed a quick sweep. Rows of kennels, some stacked, some broken. An industrial rolling cage big enough for 4 dogs. On a desk, a spiral notebook swollen with damp, its edges furred with mold. Carla shot a look, a warning, and a permission. Jack ghosted to the desk, lifted the cover. Inside, columns of breeds, weights, cash amounts, initials. The bottom line of a page bled through, N7, hold, written heavier than the rest. He photographed page by page. SFX, faint click of shutter, a tiny metallic tick deeper in the bay. A footfall, wrong and close. Carla's hand rose. Freeze. A silhouette slid between stacked pallets, tall and block-solid, bulked in a sleeveless jacket despite the cold, arms ropey with ink that mapped over knotted scars. The man's beard was a black wedge. His eyes were winter-small and mean. Wade Carver, late 40s, an ex-mechanic turned hustler by habit, wore the look of a man who had learned that power was the last thing you gave, some back. With him came 2 shadows, Trent Malloy, mid-30s, compact and restless, a wrench in his gloved hand and a twitch in his jaw that smelled of cheap stimulants, and Doyle Pritchard, lean and pale, eyes flat as pennies, the kind who smiles only when something breaks. Carver's voice slid oily through the cold. That's a lot of curiosity for a Tuesday night. Carla's badge came up, but low, just enough for conviction, not enough for a lunge. Police, step back. Keep your hands where I can see them. Carver's gaze dropped to Rex, to Atlas, and back to Jack. Soldier, he said, rolling the word like a marble. Your little girl takes the river trail, doesn't she? Pink scarf, good balance on the bike. Rage is a flare. Training is a lid. Jack kept his voice even. You're going to want to stop talking now? Doyle smiled, thin, private. Trent's wrench lifted a millimeter. Rex shifted weight onto his forepaws, a loaded spring. Carla's tone turned surgical. We will leave. We will return with a warrant and a truck full of friends. Your best move is to stand very still and pray your paperwork is clean. Carver's laugh was a single breath. Paperwork, he said, as if tasting a dead language. Then he stepped back into shadow, 2 shapes folding with him, the darkness swallowing their heat like a throat. Carla exhaled. We're out, she said, voice clipped. Jack's nod was a promise to himself. SFX, retreating steps, wind lifting a tarp, a dog's soft whine from inside a cage. At home, Lily sat cross-legged on the rug in pajamas with snowflake cuffs, drawing Rex and Atlas with firm, generous strokes. Her hair, gold and unruly, fell across her brow. Grief had taught her to be patient, but love had taught her to act. You were longer than a commercial break, she said, trying for light. The tremor in it betrayed the hours she spent waiting. Jack knelt so they were eye to eye. We found where Atlas came from, he said gently. We're going to help more like him. But it's going to take rules, strict ones. She nodded, solemn as a judge. I'll follow them. Behind her, Atlas nosed the quilt closer to the heater, and for the first time rested his chin on Lily's knee. The old dog's eyes softened, as if remembering a world where hands were kind. Rex lay between them and the door, the old soldier choosing a watchpost that let him see every angle. SFX, radiator ticking down, the city's hush deepening. Jack texted Carla 3 words. Warrant, Dawn, ready. Then he placed the SL photograph face down, as if photographs could leak, and sat very still in the dark beside his daughter until her breathing evened. Summary. Jack and Carla quietly locate a holding bay tied to Atlas, identify Wade Carver and his men, withdraw to seek a warrant, and tighten the circle around home as winter presses in. Chapter 4. Whiteout, Wirecut, Heartbeat. The storm arrived like a choir of ghosts, each flake a hush, each gust an erased footprint. SFX, blizzard howl muted by car doors, radio squelch low, bolt cutters clink. Dawn was a rumor behind cloud when Jack met Carla 2 blocks off 2nd Avenue. Carla wore a heavier-duty jacket, hair in a tight bun, jaw locked. Beside her stood Sergeant Ben O'Neill, early 40s, black, 6'2" with a linebacker frame and a gentleness at the edges. The kind of man Little League kids trusted and drunks stopped pushing when he said please. O'Neill's beard was kept neat, a faint pale scar traced from ear to jaw, an old bar fight he broke up with his face long before he made sergeant. 2 patrol officers, Marcy Fan, late 20s, Vietnamese-American, small and precise, and Luis Ortega, 30, stocky with a faded sleeve tattoo of marigolds for a mother he still called every Sunday, checked cuffs and flashlights with practiced quiet. "We've got the warrant," Carla said, voice contained. "Noise discipline, no hero laps." Jack nodded, the civilian who had worn 1,000 midnights. Lily was at home with Mrs. Keating, the retired teacher whose posture dared storm and teenager alike. Lily had promised to stay, a promise that felt thin in Jack's pocket like a lucky coin. Rex rode in the back of Carla's SUV, muscles humming under his winter coat. Atlas, older and already limping from bad years, rode with Jack, his eyes steady, accepting the job like an old priest accepts confession. SFX, tires crunching, engines idling down, wind rattling loose tarps. They staged 1 block out, boots testing drift edges, breath fogging and vanishing. O'Neill cut the chain on a side gate with 2 bites of the tool. Marcy and Luis peeled right, shoulders ghosting along sheet metal. Carla went left. Jack came center with Rex. Atlas followed a half pace, a shadow with a heartbeat. Inside the yard, the storm muffled the world to pulse and shape. The bay's side door was chained. The main door had been rolled a foot up to vent generator fumes. From the crack spilled the thin chorus of fear, yelps braided with whines, the language of animals who had learned their voices don't change a thing. SFX, generator cough, padlock pop, keys jingle, a cage door rattle. They flowed in. Rows of kennels blinked red eyes in the lamplight, and then brightened as hope rewired the room. Carla's voice went low and steady, a tone built for burning buildings and panicked hearts. "We're here. We've got you. Slow and easy." O'Neill moved to the desk. His big hands turned papers into evidence without tearing them. "More of the same ledger," he murmured. "Codes, weights, names scratched out." He lifted a cheap phone with a spider-webbed screen and bagged it. Rex stiffened, head cutting left. Jack followed the dog's point. A shed door at the far end cracked open, and Trent Malloy lunged with a crowbar, the arc wide and desperate. To SFX, metal whoosh, bark detonates. Rex hit Trent at the knee like a sledge swung low. The bar clanged off concrete. Trent howled, and O'Neill folded him with a forearm pin gentle enough to spare a ligament and hard enough to end a bad morning. Doyle broke from shadow with a knife that flashed dull in stormlight, direction arrowing not at Jack, but at Carla. Atlas, old and hurt and done with cowers, drove his shoulder into Doyle's shins. The blade skittered. Carla pivoted, and 2 movements later, Doyle ate floor and cuffs. "Where's Carver?" Marcy called, scanning the catwalk. A voice answered from somewhere between light and metal. "Right where you'll regret finding me." SFX, ladder clang, boot skids, a taser snap. Luis's probe found its home. Carver spasmed, dropped, and then lay panting like a bull that has learned fences can kick. Jack was already moving toward a back line of crates where the noise thinned into a single thread. There, in a crate meant for parts, lay a female Labrador, frost-white coat gone gray with filth. Side opened along a fresh line that seeped dark into a stiff towel. She was 9 or 10, the soft sag at her flanks telling of litters and years. Her eyes were the kind that apologize for taking up space. Jack dropped to knees that had learned to pray without a church. "Hey, girl," he whispered, stripping off his scarf, pressing. "Pressure. Stay. Good." The dog's breath fluttered like a moth. "We've got a bleeder," Jack called, voice calm because panic is a contagion. Carla slid beside him, hands already gloved. "Luis, trauma kit. Marcy, clear an aisle. O'Neill, keep the pipeline to animal control trucks moving." Rex stood over them, a living wall. Atlas sank to the floor near the lab's muzzle, offering warmth like an ember. SFX. Velcro rip, tape tear, storm hush, threading between words. They packed and wrapped, turned a wound into a plan. Somewhere in there, a shape appeared in the big bay doorway, small against the weather. The outline of a girl in a navy parka with stars on the hood. "Lily," Jack said. A plea and a miracle and a lecture swallowed at once. Her cheeks were apple red, her breath a steam ribbon. She carried a folded fleece blanket, blue, Rex's name stitched crooked along the edge. Child's letters, careful pride. "For her," Lily said, voice shaking but steady enough to stitch the blanket into the scene. Carla flicked a fast glance, anger tempered by what the blanket was doing to save a life. "After this," she said softly to Jack, "we revisit rules." Jack nodded, throat tight, and Lily knelt on the clean side of the puddle, palms light on the lab's head, whispering a rhythm children learn from bedtime. "Hush, hush, it's all right. You're safe now." The lab's eyes, clouded but not yet surrendered, found Lily's and held like two hands. "Grace," Lily breathed. "Your name is Grace." The trucks arrived, bright boxes of warmth in a winter of wire. Dogs loaded, old ones first, then the ferals, then the pups who didn't know yet what had been taken. Carver, Trent, and Doyle were moved to separate cruisers. In the quick light of a camera flash, Jack saw a thin figure at the fence line beyond the tape, a knit cap, a long lens dome. Simon Laird, late 20s to 30s, tall and too thin, face all cheekbone and curiosity. Snow jeweled his lashes. He didn't lift the camera. He just watched, as if deciding which world he belonged to. Jack stepped to the line, Rex at heel. "You sign your work," Jack said, breath making fog between them. Simon's Adam's apple bobbed. "Not always," he replied, voice raw from cold. Up close, the man's hands trembled. Whether from chill or conscience, Jack couldn't say. "People pay for stories," Simon added, more apology than defense. "Sometimes the wrong people." "That stops," Jack said, not angry, just done. Simon nodded once, small and grateful, as if a verdict had been lighter than he deserved. SFX, doors thudding, radios clearing, generator winding down to silence. In the sudden quiet, the bay felt bigger, emptied of the ache that had filled it. Carla signed the last tag. O'Neill sealed the evidence cart. Marcy and Luis double-checked corners because thoroughness is how you sleep later. Jack brushed melting snow from Atlas's ruff, pressed his forehead to the old dogs, and exhaled a thank you against fur that smelled of iron and hope. Lily stood beside Grace's crate in the warm truck, holding a corner of blue fleece like a talisman. The storm softened to a sift. Pittsburgh's bridges faded in and out of view like ribs under breath. Summary: before daybreak, Carla's team raids Bay 12. Rex and Atlas take down attackers. Lily defies orders to deliver a blanket and a name, Grace, and Wade Carver's ring collapses into cuffs and evidence as snow turns the city quiet again. Chapter 5. Echoes in the Snow. By late February, the last of the snow on Pittsburgh's rooftops had thinned into silver veins, the kind that melt quietly but never vanish all at once. The city breathed again. The air still carried winter's sharpness, but there was sunlight now, golden, hesitant, like hope learning to walk after a long sleep. Jack Turner leaned against the porch rail of his Lawrenceville row house, mug in hand, steam rising into the cold. Below, the yard had transformed. What had once been a patch of tired grass and leftover frost was now fenced, layered with straw, and dotted with kennels of pale blue paint. A hand-painted wooden sign hung crooked but proud above the gate. Steel City Pause. The letters were uneven, painted by Lily's small hands, but the message was clear enough to make Jack's chest tighten. Inside the yard, dogs of every size and age moved with unhurried peace, tails wagging in slow rhythm, paws pressing into soft ground that no longer froze beneath them. Rex, his loyal old soldier, rested in the shade of the maple tree, eyes half closed but ears still alert to every sound. His fur had grown fuller again, and though his limp remained, he moved with the pride of someone who had earned every scar. Nearby, Atlas lay stretched on a fleece blanket, his breathing steady, the once fearful shepherd now at ease among laughter and light. And then there was Grace, the old Labrador Lily had saved that night at the warehouse. Healed now, her pale fur gleaming in the morning sun. She walked slowly, gently nudging a small puppy named Scout, the one Lily had rescued weeks before, toward a bowl of water. Inside the house, Lily hummed while slicing apples for the volunteers who came each morning. She was 10 now, taller, surer, the softness of childhood meeting the strength of something larger. Compassion learned early and carried proudly. Her hair, sunlit gold, fell into her eyes as she worked. Jack watched her through the screen door, and for the first time in years, the ache inside his chest felt less like loss and more like gratitude. SFX, light breeze through the yard, distant church bells, the soft clinking of metal bowls. The gate creaked open. Officer Carla Ruiz stepped in, her usual uniform traded for jeans and a heavy sweater, her badge absent but presence unmistakable. "You did it," she said, looking around. "You turned the evidence into a sanctuary." Jack smiled, humble. "I just built fences. Lily did the rest." Carla crouched, scratching behind Rex's ear. "Sometimes fences are what keep miracles from running off." They stood for a while without words, watching the dogs move freely. Beyond the fence, the city hummed with quiet life. A bus braking, a horn on Butler Street, a distant bell from St. Matthew's ringing the noon hour. Jack spoke softly. "I used to think I'd seen everything that mattered out there, in the dust, in the noise. But this..." He gestured toward the yard. "This is different. This is peace that stays." Carla nodded, her voice low. "Maybe peace isn't something we win. Maybe it's something we make, one creature at a time." Later that afternoon, when the last volunteer left and the house fell into that warm, lived-in quiet, Lily came out with her sketchbook. She climbed onto the porch steps beside her father and began to draw, quick, bright strokes of colored pencils scratching softly. When she turned the page to show him, Jack couldn't speak for a moment. She had drawn their home, the kennels, the sign, and the sky above them filled not with snow, but with soft falling lights, like flakes turned to stars. In the center stood 3 figures, a man in a worn jacket, a girl with a braid, and 2 shepherds, one young, one old. "It's us," Lily said simply. "And I added the lights because Mom always said snowflakes are tiny miracles. They fall, they melt, but they never stop coming." Jack swallowed hard, blinking at the page. "She did say that." Lily leaned her head on his arm. "Do you think God sends miracles like that? The kind you don't see until they land right next to you?" Jack smiled, voice rough. "Yeah. I think maybe he sends them as second chances. Not loud, not shining, just quiet enough for us to find." He looked out at the yard again, Rex lifting his head, Atlas dozing near Grace and Scout. Snow began to fall lightly once more, as if the sky wanted to remind them that even endings could start again. SFX, soft snow landing on wood, church bells fading into wind, dogs sighing in contentment. That night, the world outside glowed blue and silver. Jack tucked Lily into bed, her sketchbook open beside her. He turned off the lamp, leaving only the soft halo of moonlight across the pages. Downstairs, Rex curled at the door, Atlas beside the fire, and Grace lay under the window, her breathing slow and certain. Jack sat at the table, the Bible his mother once kept resting beside the coffee mug. Its pages were worn, corners bent. But when he opened it, the verse she had underlined long ago caught the lamplight. "He heals the broken-hearted and binds up their wounds." Psalm 147:3. He looked around the room, at the life he had rebuilt not by force, but by faith, by choosing kindness when it hurt to try. SFX, faint ticking clock, snowstorm easing outside. When dawn came, Pittsburgh woke to quiet sunlight glinting off melting snow. The sign "Steel City Paws" shimmered under the light, the words uneven but proud. In the reflection of the window, Jack saw Lily stepping into the yard, Scout bounding ahead of her, Grace following with patient steps. He saw himself, Rex, and Atlas moving beside them, and for a fleeting moment, it all felt like one unbroken prayer, answered not in thunder, but in the sound of laughter carried on cold air. Maybe miracles, he thought, don't fall from heaven in blinding flashes. Maybe they arrive on 4 legs, scarred but loyal, reminding us that love, like snow, can fall again even after it melts.